thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome back, everybody. Many of us are going to experience many things on our road to success. We're going to have to overcome obstacles, some of them large, some of them small, but not many of us are going to find our road to success as traumatic as Elizabeth Mikotowicz. Her journey starts with a story of abuse and then leads into a story of how a system left her behind, and she found protection from an abusive husband from a drug dealer, in which case she did eventually become arrested for dealing drugs or selling drugs on the street. She spent time in prison where she found more abuses, and through all that she was able to find her art, and she has a voice of advocacy and wants the world to know what is really going on inside of the prison systems in which she was incarcerated. And she also wants to share with the world a focus of beauty with her artwork and her clothing designs that are, of course, available on her own website. So why don't we welcome Elizabeth to the show, and let's hear her story and how she has overcome great adversity. So let's welcome Elizabeth Mikotowicz to our show as she tells her story about how her art got born and the struggle it took to actually get to where she is right now. So, welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah. So what? I mean, there was the life you have now, but what was life like before your art really started getting moving and everything?
Well, I mean, in high school, I was always kind of artsy. Like, I was in chamber choir, and I took all the art classes, and I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't that serious about it. But my life kind of took a rough turn once I got out on my own. I dated some really abusive men. My son's father ended up, almost killing me. He beat me with a wooden dowel, and my skull was showing. Like, they had to sew the muscle back, then sew the skin back, and I found out I was pregnant that day, so that was great news. Second time I had gotten pregnant on birth control. Some women, the pills don't work for us. I don't know. But yeah, I started getting seizures after that too. And the amount of pain I was in, like I was a chronic pain patient now. And, you know, at first I took the opioids that they gave me, but when they sent me to the pain clinic and it was clear I was going to be, you know, on this prescription, you know, every day, that was when I was like, yeah, I don't want to take that stuff. I don't want to get addicted. I don't want my baby to get addicted. Like I've watched my whole community, you know, go down the toilet basically, you know, the last 10, 15 years because of these pills. And they said, well, you're on too small of a dose to get addicted. And, you know, and I was now on state insurance, you know, main care, you know, for, you know, the poor people. And I wasn't on my parents' private insurance anymore. And I noticed I was treated a lot differently. And they literally threatened me with Child Protective Services and said that I was endangering my baby by, you know, not wanting to take these pills. And, you know, all opioids do is make the pain receptors in your brain more sensitive. So, you know, when it wears off, you're in twice the amount of pain you would have been. And if you were just not taking it. And yes, I was in an excruciating amount of pain. Like I was having seizures. It was awful. But, you know, these opioids weren't going to help me. And so obviously I took it, you know, because I didn't want to call the Child Protective Services and, you know, them to look into, you know, further, you know, into my injuries. This was the second time I'd been hospitalized in, you know, a month. And like a month prior to him doing that gash on my head, he ragdolled me around the room and I hit the back of my head on a radiator. Needed stitches again. So it was like 2 head injuries, you know, right back to back. And like the abuse got worse. I mean, when I tried to leave, I got held hostage in my own house for 3 days. And, you know, the things he did to me, you know, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And, you know, I finally went to Spruce Run, the battered women's shelter in Bangor, Maine, and they turned me away with 2 beds open. They said that my injuries were too extensive and it put the other women in the shelter in danger. I had just lost my public housing because of him, because the cops showed up, because he was attacking me, and I lost my public housing because of that. I didn't do anything like that. And, you know, then all these other places that gave out vouchers said, well, you messed up your public housing, so we're not going to help you. So I was like homeless, you know, like couldn't take care of my children properly because I was going into seizures and I was waking up on the ground unconscious, not knowing how long I was out for. And, you know, my daughter was like 14 months old. So, you know, after this head injury, like she had to start staying with my dad because I'm like, I'm going to wake up to a tragedy, you know, and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't, you know, take a medicine to make this go away. You know, it's brain damage. And so this really like altered my life. And, yeah, so the battered women's shelter turned me away. And this is a problem with victim-based shelters. A friend of mine was trying to get into the human trafficking shelter, and they turned her away because she wouldn't snitch out her pimp. Like, these pimps know where these girls' parents are, their kids are, everything. They take their social security cards, their IDs. They take everything from them and get them cornered. So, you know, you want these women to risk their lives, their children's lives, their families' lives, so they can get to safety. Like, you're extorting them. And, you know, it just disgusts me because, you know, after that, you know, drug dealers helped me. Drug dealers, you know, were like, hey, we'll give you a place, you know, we'll give you drugs to sell, you know, you'll be okay, we'll protect you, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, I had never sold drugs. I had never like, you know, I dabbled here and there, but, you know, like that's not the life I wanted. I was in college before this, you know, I had plans of what I wanted to do with my life, and it did not involve, you know, running with gangsters and, you know, selling drugs and breaking the law. It did not involve that. But, you know, as, you know, the carpet just kept getting ripped out from underneath me, and, you know, you get more and more desperate. And, you know, 70% of women in this country that go to prison have some sort of domestic violence or sexual assault in their past before they even go to prison. And it's like, like victims just fall through the cracks. And then, you know, we get thrown away, go to prison, and, you know, basically dehumanized. I mean, by the time I got out, I had conservative women telling me, if you don't want to get raped by cops, then you shouldn't break the law and go to prison. Like, just say you're okay with cops being predators. I mean, that's what you mean.
Wow. Wow. So it's nice to know that you're trying to be a good upstanding citizen, and those, because you have a record, all that are like, oh well, you're just one of those, let's just throw you away.
Yeah.
That's wow. So okay, so all that happened to you. You wound up in prison, and while you were in prison, you started developing your art, right?
Well, I started getting back into it. When I was pregnant with my kids, and when I had time, I would paint here and there. But yeah, once I went to jail, they asked me to paint murals because I was always drawing and I was always doing stuff. So I got to paint murals in some of the facilities at Danbury. I got to paint what I wanted, and I was so excited about that. I called it my blue period because they only let me paint with this beautiful, bright, royal type blue. And then they let me use, black and white for shading, obviously. But yeah, and as a side hustle, I would paint cups for the inmates and then seal it with floor wax, or I'd do a portrait, and like art was my hustle in there. That's how I survived, because, they make you work 40 hours a week and they only pay you $5.25 a month. Right. So, I mean, and then everything on the commissary, like a package of ramen noodles that costed, back then it was like 10 cents. Out here, it costs $1.50 in there. So they're extorting these people every which way they can, and yeah, it's really quite awful. Yeah, I got in trouble with some of my art because I do some political pieces. I mean, my first week at Somerset County, I witnessed an entire pot of women get stripped out because they signed up for a razor, and a male sergeant wanted a list of who shaved their vaginas and who didn't. Those that did were punished. Like, this is the PG stuff going on in there. And, they forced me to strip in front of cameras, under duress of being extracted and maced. And when they extract you, they come 12 deep, all suited up. For those of you thinking that you would just say no to these people, that this is how they respond to that. They'll show up, in tactical gear, electric shock shields that zap you if you touch them. I mean, they have batons, they have mace, they have these canisters that they throw in your cell, and it's chemicals that are designed to take the oxygen out of your throat, basically. It is terrifying. Like, you feel like you're dying. And I was never even in one of those cells that got directly hit, but I was upstairs, and it all comes through the vents. So everybody that's not doing anything wrong gets hit with these chemicals. Yeah. And it's absolutely terrifying. And I would try to write while I was in there too. My book's almost done. I'm in the editing process. I wrote a lot of poems. And when I got out, I actually won 2 years in a row and got 2 of my poems published. But writing was like really how, because when you're in jail, the lack of stimulation literally slows your brain down. Like, your brain starts shutting parts of itself off, like in solitary, because it's not being used. And then the only stimulation you do get is violence and chaos. So it makes normal everyday situations, like people talking. When I got out of solitary, people talking over each other would make me panic. And my first instinct was like, who do I got to fight? Like, your first instinct is violence, because this is what they condition you for. And so I was like determined, like, you are not going to turn me into some mental vegetable that just explodes, from, not being able to handle normal stuff. So I constantly was trying to like educate myself in there. Like, I'd read books about, people in history, like Queen Elizabeth or, Ivan the Terrible. Like, I'd read all these books and, try to, work my mind, because I didn't want them to take that from me too.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's the one thing that some of the prison systems, they try to take from you, but it's the one thing that if you center yourself in your own self-belief, that they can't take it from you, right? And it sounds like that's what you were doing, is center yourself in your own self-belief, in your own education, so that you protected your mind.
Yes, but it still damages you. Like
Oh,
every
yeah.
time I go to Walmart, like for the first 6 months when I went to Walmart, it was so much stuff, and my brain was like, "Oh my God, can't do this." I would get physically ill. Like I'd
Hmm.
literally throw up because it would stress my system out so much. Like it rewires your brain. Like you're not gonna get out of that,
Right.
depending on how long you're in there. And the horrible things you see. Like I watched so many women die of very treatable things, and it never should have happened. They genuinely do not care. I watched a woman go into labor, and the only reason they brought her to the hospital is because the rest of us flipped out and threatened to riot. Then they told her, if this is a false alarm, like Braxton Hicks or something, and you don't have this baby, we're going to put you in solitary. They threatened a woman with the whole if she had a false labor. I mean, that's barbaric. Like every woman out there, like I want you to imagine like being told you're going to be put locked in a room if it's a false labor. Like a friend of mine was shoveling snow and she broke her leg, and this was the job the prison had her doing. By the time they brought her to the hospital, they had to re-break her leg because the bone had fused back together. I love listening to people that think that inmates get free healthcare, because no, they don't. I've watched inmates performing minor surgeries on themselves because, they can't get medical help. Medical sent them away and then threatened them with, a disciplinary action if they didn't leave. And I mean, unless if an inmate hits the ground, they're not going to take them to the hospital. I mean,
Yeah.
it's awful.
Wow. It it sounds like a slice of hell.
It is. And, I filed a PREA complaint against Somerset County for making me strip in front of cameras. I waited till I got to Alderson. Well, when Alderson got the complaint back, they wouldn't even allow me to hold it to read it myself. They read me the response from Somerset County, and Somerset County admitted to everything I was complaining about, and then they deemed it unfounded. So if they deem it unfounded, it won't go to an outside source, and it just gets buried. And PREA stands for Prison Rape Elimination Act. So anything sexual, whether it's, saying something inappropriate or doing something inappropriate, whether it's a cop or an inmate, it's going to go under PREA. So this is how they bury the abuse. They'll simply deem it unfounded. And by law, an outside source is supposed to come interview the inmate. This has never happened. I filed like 3 PREA complaints, I think, when I was at Somerset County. I had an officer pulling my pants open, asking me if I had underwear on, like exposing me to other inmates. Like, you don't touch me. Like, get off your high horse. Like, that would never happen. Like, if you had done that in a workplace, like, and well, it was her workplace technically, like, you would be arrested. Like, you don't do that.
Right.
And so after I got out, I found out that an outside source is supposed to come interview me, and all the other inmates she did this to. That never happened. But Alderson literally told me, we can't give you a copy of that. I go, it's my complaint. I filed it. Like, you have, like, give me my paperwork. And they said, no, we don't do that. We don't want it floating around the compound. Okay, I'll send it home. No, we can't let you do that either. So when you get out, you have 100 days to file a complaint. But the first thing they ask for is, was there an outcry at the time? Is there paperwork? Did you file a PREA complaint? Well, yes, I did, but they didn't give it to me. And so when I got out, the captain at Alderson, the PREA coordinator, and a bunch of their subordinates all got charged with raping and stalking inmates. So I wasn't even the only one they did it to, and they were covering for other facilities as well. But this is how it happens. Facilities will cover for each other. I mean, and when we came into orientation, this lady literally said, well, you're way worse than the charges you got. You've broken the law way more than what you're here for. Like, she basically said that we deserved way more time than we got. And she said, and when it comes to PREA complaints, I protect my boys from these vindictive inmates that just want a free paycheck. Like, that's how she viewed it. Like, we already know we're not going to be believed, and predators flock to these institutions to, because they know women like us, they won't be believed. And on top of that, people don't care. Like I said, conservative women told me when I got out, like, if you don't want to get raped by cops, then don't go to jail. that is the rape culture and misogyny, that it is that bad in this country, that people think that certain groups of women, it's okay if you abuse them. Who cares? They're lucky to get that type of attention from that kind of man. Like,
Wow.
that is literally how it's looked at. And, you know, the juvenile centers, like, I get so worked up talking about this because, you know, the juvenile centers are even worse.
Yeah.
Like I said, predators flock to these institutions for employment, and they are not checked. They're not, you know, even their background, you know, 98% of predators aren't on the sex offender registry because 98% never see a courtroom. And, you know, or no, 96% never see a courtroom. 98% never see a jail cell. Sorry, got my statistics.
Yeah.
But when I was at Cumberland County, they would bring juveniles from, you know, first of all, they're dehumanizing them by calling them juveniles. They're children. Like, people forget, those are children. Yeah. Maybe they messed up, maybe they did something wrong, but those are children. They would bring the children from Long Creek to be held with us when they got to be too much of a problem. And Long Creek's in the paper every couple months, every few years, for sexual assault, choking children out to the point they're unconscious, breaking children's arms. And, you know, then they have, you know, whoever's at the top say, well, these are the worst of the worst kids. Like, and you're grown ass people. You shouldn't be breaking kids' arms because they're not listening to you. Yes, I'm sure they are the worst of the worst. I'm sure they've had the worst trauma, the worst treatment, the worst lives. Like, these are children that need help, and you are destroying them. So they brought this one little 17-year-old girl, and she had been repeatedly raped by high-ranking officers. Well, she finally snapped and stabbed one of these officers, so they brought her with us on Christmas, just to mess with her and, you know, make her mentally break down. On Christmas, they told her she was going back there for her last 2 weeks. She slit her throat that night. That was better than going back there. Like, you know, and like, I get so upset when I keep seeing, you know, people say, oh, we need armed guards in every school to stop school shootings. You did that, and you didn't prevent a single school shooting. But what you did do is send a bunch of black and brown children to juvenile facilities. Well, you know, cash for kids. Yeah. And I'm sure your listeners are wondering why there are so many people in prison. I mean, we make up 25% of the global incarceration rate, and we're only 5% of the world. Like, they make money. They make over $100 a day per inmate for that institution. And then they contract out our cheap labor. For instance, a hospital saves $350,000 a year contracting their linen to be washed by inmates instead of paying regular Americans. This is all about money. Inmates are profit, and they've been demonized enough so that society goes, oh, okay, yeah, put them in prison, put them to work.
Yeah. So, to get back to your art, though, how has all that helped your art? Because you have a website full of your artwork that you've turned into fashion, and for those who are actually going to be watching this on Rumble, you have a painting sitting right next to you. So
yes, I do. I haven't turned that one into a dress yet, but I do have some clothes to show you. So when I got out, I was like institutionalized, and I really couldn't leave my house. And then the pandemic hit, so nobody could really leave their house. Mm-hmm. And I started painting a lot, and I had set up with some of the local shops in Bangor to do like art shows during the pandemic. And then I found this company called Le Galeries, and they turn your art into an environmentally friendly clothing brand. Here, I'll show you. Like, this is one of my little bags. So I painted the fish, and it matches like all of my colors perfectly. And it's like really well made. Like, the stuff is very, very well made. And it comes in plus sizes too. So like, it's very inclusive to everybody. And I was like really happy about that. So I got a grant, and I started off small because I just wanted to put like, you know, like scarves and, you know, some of my other stuff into the stores. I figured that would be a good way to start instead of going with dresses. And you know, I'm kind of a weirdo. Like, one day I'll be like gothic and dark femme, like you can kind of see with this painting.
Oh, wow.
And then the next Yeah, and then the next day I'll be like butterflies and rainbows, and so there's something for everybody on here. I also have like a couple political pieces, because I'm an activist, gotten a few bills passed, for the good of the people. This is called a Faruski. I don't actually know what a Faruski is, but it's kind of like a handkerchief. I had never heard of that before, though. Yeah, this is one of my more gothic, dark femme pieces. You can also see the painting on the tag.
Right. All right.
Yeah, I've got some more. And like there's like one painting will be on like 10 different pieces, so you can like match a whole outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's one of my bags with the horse on, my abstract horse.
Beautiful pieces.
Thank you. Yep, see, butterflies and flowers.
Yeah.
Opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah. Great use of color and everything. Okay, so you said that you got a grant, right? Now, I want to, and see, the importance to this question is that a lot of business owners, they think that, oh, if I don't bootstrap the whole thing, if I don't find investors, that my business is just flat out going to fail. But you're proving that because you went and got a grant to help you, that there is government money out there to help you operate your business, and so you can develop new and cooler things, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's what got me like my first set of inventory. Yeah, like I got like a couple grand worth of inventory, and then I was able to go around to the stores and be like, hey, here's my product, would you sell it? And yeah. So it's definitely worth, trying to get grants, especially like if you have a cool story behind it, like my story is a little bit different, and I've had every business advisor like tell your story because, that's part of, the art and the message behind it. And,
yeah. Because like you said, you're also an activist, right?
Yes, I'm working to expose the prison system, for what it is. We just got a bill passed in Maine mandating all jails provide tampons and pads free of charge for women. And yes, that is a problem. Women will be so desperate, they will make their own tampons and then give themselves infections. And then, well, like I said, you don't really get medical treatment in there. So.
Wow. How do you... Should I ask the question? How does a woman make a tampon?
Oh, there's a few different ways. Usually taking the inside of a pad out and looking for string and, tying it up and, or if you can get your hands on the really thin pads, you can roll them up with a string in the middle of. Don't try this. Nobody try this. People get sick doing this. Don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we won't go into too much detail, but that's interesting.
Well, inmates are very, very clever. I mean, I learned how to pour water through a locked door when I was in there. Didn't even spill.
Pour water through a locked door.
Well, yeah, because when you're in like county jail, like some cells don't have running water. They won't fix them. It'll take them weeks. So there will be inmates in there with no water, and the guards don't care. So they're not going to open the door for you. Even if what we'd have to do is get somebody that we were cool with, and they'd bring water up, and you take a piece of paper and you fold it the long way, and you shove it in through the door. And it doesn't last very long. Sometimes you have to get like more than one piece of paper, but the paper acts like a funnel. And so you pour it down the end and they catch it with their cup and yeah.
Now it makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
I have used paper as a funnel in order to redirect from one container to another. Yes, that makes sense. So, all these innovations in innovative things from out of need, because the prison wouldn't provide, have helped you in giving you the confidence and know how to be able to run your business.
Yeah, well, honestly, I didn't really know anything about like writing a business plan or writing a grant. But for those of you out there who, are like me, maybe you have a mental diagnosis, maybe you have PTSD or a physical, thing that makes you technically disabled, there's something called vocational rehab. And they helped me a lot. So I signed up with them, and they have them in all 50 states. Like the one in Maine, they gave me a business advisor. They gave me the one down south in a red state really isn't, that helpful. So I'm kind of trying to figure out what I'm doing. But like they gave me a business advisor. They gave me this list or this direction sheet of like how to write a business plan. And so I did everything they told me to do. And, then, yeah, I ended up getting the grant. So that was really cool.
Yeah. Very cool. So, let me ask you this, because you're it sounds like also you found a manufacturing partner to help you develop product and everything, turn your paintings into the prints, then it gets imprinted onto the fabric and then turned into the bags, the different garments and stuff like that.
Yep.
Which is also very cool. But how did you, because in the prison system, what you were talking about being the anxieties and things like that it caused, how did you relearn to build these relationships?
I'm still learning. I kind of, in order to not go back to prison, I had cut a lot of people out of my life that were still involved in that world. And, honestly, the only reason I did this well the last 5 years is because Janet Mills took over for Paula Page and she expanded main care. So I was able to get health insurance, and I was able to get trauma counseling. I was able to get MAT treatment when I needed it. Then I got off of it when, I was, done. And, and I used to, like, before I went and, talked to state representatives and was like getting bills, put on the table and passed, I was really like, why would they listen to me? I'm just like a domestic violence, poster child, a traumatized mess and a recovering drug addict. Like, why would they listen to me? Like, and then I was like, well, why wouldn't they listen to me? Like, I'm their failed statistic. Like, I've seen what needs to be changed. And, and so I just started showing up at their meetings and like speaking and, saying things from my point of view and things I had seen and, statistics and like what needed to be changed. And, they actually took me seriously. And, that was really cool. So, I mean, don't ever think, like, people out there, like, you if you have a different perspective, you should share it. Because, people don't necessarily know. It's not that they don't necessarily want to help. It's that they don't know about it.
Right. Well, as a society, we can't fix something that we don't know about, right?
Right.
So,
right.
And hey, that's the whole point of activism. Is like, see, here's the problem. Help me fix it, right?
Right.
I'm making light of it, but it is really that serious, because you and I are both activists in that respect, right? So
yes.
So yeah, but do you still get seizures?
Oh yeah.
And how severe are your seizures?
Well, I got back in the Suboxone program like 9 months ago because I started having like PTSD, like nightmares really bad because law enforcement let a certain serial predator out like early. So it kind of like really triggered me. And so when I moved down south, I had to switch my Suboxone doctor. Now, this is what addicts deal with. This is the stigma and like the hell addicts deal with. So when I came down to a red state, I couldn't find any place affordable. So I signed up with WMD. They require you to get a drug test every month. Fine. So I went and I got one through A Dependable, and they go through a MedTox laboratory. I told them what it was for. I told them what would be in my system and like exactly what I needed this for. So I paid $65. And then they decided to withhold my results because the medication was in my system. So I literally detoxed cold turkey for 5 days straight. I was hallucinating. I was hearing things. I had seizures. And, you know, this is when people go back to prison. This is when they relapse. This is when they die. And this company, MedTox, and they say, oh, well, we do this with every test that has a substance in it. Yes, I told you it would have a substance in it. And I told you what it was for. And I told you that my medication was running out. And the whole reason behind this was to get this for my doctor. And they withheld it anyway. And, you know, by the time they didn't even give me the results. They tried to call me and I was like, you know what? I don't even need the results anymore. I signed up with a different doctor. And you're not supposed to do that. But like, it was literally to the point where I was getting chest pains. Like I could feel it going down my arm. Like, and people think like when you withdraw, like you just get sick or, you know, it's like the flu. No, it's not. It can kill you. And Big Pharma just finally admitted that it can kill you. And so this is what addicts, you know, and this is when you completely go and, you know, have a breakdown and relapse and do drugs because you're literally in full-blown detox. Like I was on the ground, like I was seizing on the ground because like I did not have this medication, and you know they don't care. Yeah. They don't care. So I mean, if any of you addicts out there like have to get a drug test, do not go through anybody that uses MedTox because they will discriminate against you and withhold your results and put you in harm's way.
Wow. I do know this from experience when I was a teenager that I worked in a drug and alcohol detox. Now, I worked in the drug and alcohol detox because I decided I wanted to go to private school and I needed tuition money, so I had to pay my own tuition because my parents weren't able to pay it. But so I got this job, and I watched this guy detoxing from PCP, and
I didn't know that. I didn't know it could be that bad.
He bent a bed in half because that's how violent the seizures got, right?
Yeah.
It isn't. They think that it's like they have this superhuman strength because the drug. It's not because the drug's in them. It's because the drug's leaving them that they get that strength and everything. And it turns off the pain receptors because normal pain receptors, you're bending a steel bed in half, it would say
it's gonna hurt you.
Yeah, you're in pain and stop you, right? You couldn't do it. But so I've seen firsthand what detoxing can actually do to people, and it isn't pretty, and it's not something that I would want you to actually live through. It's like it's like there's some substances that it's better to sedate the person while the drug leaves and then deal with whatever the dependence of the sedation drug is.
Right.
And
you know, Ibogaine is illegal in America, but for any of you addicts out there, I want to try it honestly, because what it does is it completely resets the brain, like back before you were ever addicted. So, you know, you're not going to be dealing, if you have trauma and, you know, physical chronic pain like I do, like you're going to be battling addiction for the rest of your life, because every time you have a PTSD trigger or like chronic pain, your brain's going to be throwing that drug in your face. Like you need this to survive. You need this to be better. Like your brain literally works against you. And you know, that's just what happens. It rewires your brain to make that substance more vital than water. And in Sweden, they're having a 97%, success rate. But they're not going to make it legal in America because Big Pharma is making too much money off of Suboxone and methadone and all these other pharmaceutical drugs that slowly kill you.
Yeah. Well, we could have a whole nother conversation about about the pharmaceuticals that are out there to help us get off of the addiction of the dreaded opium.
Right.
So, because we do need to, I really want to stay focused on how your life is shaping up because of your art.
It's good. I've been going on podcasts. I've been meeting all these cool people, and they're all just so supportive. Like, I mean, I wish I had found this support earlier on, and I probably would have believed in myself a little bit more. But I'm going to do vendor shows down here, and I'm seeing what stores I can get my brand into, and yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah,
things are going good, and my book's about to come out. Like, I'm almost done editing it. The editing is so hard for me, but it's called No Justice, Just Us, and it's in detail, my journey through the federal prison system, like up to now. And it's going to explain all the laws that I've, bills that I've helped gotten passed and what I'm still trying to pass. And, I'm also creating an adult coloring book. Because there was this style of art called Zentangle art. It's like meditative doodling, and it really helped me in jail. Like, when I wasn't painting and when I didn't have access to paint, I was doing this. And it really helped me with, PTSD triggers. And, everyone's like, oh, talk about it. And it's like, no, talking about your trauma, only, your brain doesn't know the difference between a memory and what's actually happening. So, you're literally just re-traumatizing your brain. And, it doesn't really help distracting yourself, from focusing on the trauma. That's what, got me through it. And, and so I'm creating an adult coloring Zentangle book, and I'm putting like tips in, things that I learned about PTSD and trauma and addiction and, stuff that helped me get through it. So like, I want to help others, and, it's not an overnight fix for anything. It's just something to help you.
What other tools do you use to get through the trauma and the seizures and everything? What other tools do you use?
Well, so there's this thing you can do, like you can name everything in the room, like, oh, coffee maker, that's black, and you like associate the color with it. Well, that's how you distract yourself, and that's what the counselor told me to do. And so in jail, when you're in a cell with nothing but what's in the cell, like I would literally be saying the stuff and my trauma would be like on repeat because there's just not enough in there for you to distract yourself with. So what I would do is I'd name Slipknot songs and I'd sing the first lyric of every song, and then I'd go to the next one and I'd list it off, and I'd I'd just go through that. Like, music always helped me too, and Slipknot was my favorite. I left prison with 2 matching crocheted Slipknot bags. That's another great art. Like you will find so many women in there crocheting stuff, and the stuff they create, it's just beautiful. Like, they had reversible stuffed animals. Like, one end was a dinosaur and the other end was like a fish. Like, it was just the coolest, like, most beautiful stuff that was being created.
Yeah, very cool. Not so cool that because it's locked away in the prison.
Right.
But it's cool that you find creativity as an outlet. I'm going to ask you a political question on top of that one, because is the prison system trying to stifle that creative process?
Some places are. I mean, they love to say, oh, we have programs for the inmates and it's so good for them and blah, blah, blah. Like, they love to, gas their own ego up. But it's just kind of used as something they can take away from you. So yeah, they do stifle it. I had paints in my locker, for my own like side hustle, and they would come through, raid my locker and take it from me because I wasn't going through their class and I wasn't supposed to have it in my locker. Like, I'm not doing anything to hurt anybody. I'm not, selling drugs or anything like that. I'm sitting here painting and you're going to come raid my locker. Like, so yeah, I do think it's, bottom line, they're looking to lock us all up. I mean, during the pandemic, before the pandemic started, there were 3 empty properties for every homeless man, woman, and child. Now there's 29, and prisons across America were taking out PPP loans to expand their prisons and get more wings added on. And the corporations said, we'll buy all the prisons as long as they stay at 90% full. So this is all about money. This is all about, extorting people's free labor and, destroying, taking their name away and giving them an inmate number.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, we let them paint, just not in their own, cube where they're, minding their business.
Yeah. So, we are gonna run out of time soon. So, one final thought. With your art, what are you really trying to tell the world?
I don't know. Well, with my brand, anybody that embodies the divine feminine, this world just, still oppresses women and, trans women and, anything that has to do with women, it's going to be dehumanized and kind of beat down. And, I just want anybody that, puts this brand on to like feel stunning and empowered and beautiful and confident about themselves. Like, I mean, this world comes for women in every way possible. And it's you see it now, especially like with, the laws that are being passed, and just femininity is defined for us, not by us. And I think it's time we take that back. But with my art, it's different because like one day I'll be doing a political piece and then other days it'll be, just something beautiful for, my brand. And, I like to tell stories and I like to expose things for what they are with my art as well. Like, with my piece, Freedom and Justice for All. It's that one with it's basically everyone that was ever oppressed by white men in America.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people on there. That one took me like 40 plus hours. Yeah, and I have a couple prison pieces and yeah. I haven't been painting as much because I've been working on my book, but yeah, I need to get back into it. So.
We're gonna have you come back with your book when it's ready.
Definitely.
So we'll have to plan some kind of book launch from our show.
That would be great.
And I think that would be pretty cool for you. Best ways to find you.
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok. I have a Twitter account, but I never go on there because I hate it and I end up arguing with people that aren't worth my time. But my handles are all the same. It's EPM_art_1111. And my clothing website is legalaries.com/en/Elizabeth.Mikotowicz. You have to put the EN Elizabeth Mikotowicz at the end, or it will just take you to Legalary's main website. And they have tons of artists doing what I'm doing, so it will not be my stuff.
Yeah. Very cool. So, thank you for joining us today, and thank you everybody for listening in. And go to Elizabeth's website, buy her art, buy her fashion, and help fund her cause to end the oppression in women's prisons, and maybe help get a couple of laws changed to make life a little easier for for women and for those of us who find oppression.
Men too. Men get oppressed in prison too, but it's just a little worse for the women.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Help us to This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.